Hello, and welcome to the Argyle AI Leadership Summit, Revolutionizing Business Strategy with AI. My name is Nick with Argyle, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. A couple of notes before I turn things over to our esteemed speaker. First, a quick reminder to stop by our sponsors' virtual booths at any time during today's event and for the following week. Our partners are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. At any time during today's event, you can visit their virtual booths from the main agenda page, which include complimentary materials, information, and meet and greet opportunities. Throughout today's event, you will also have the opportunity to win one of several prizes. So be sure to check out the prizes and raffle rules tab of the interface to see how you can earn points. To ask questions throughout the session, simply type into the Q&A chat and we will address your questions at the end of the session. Now, without further delay, I would like to introduce our speaker, Glen Moffatt, SAP Evangelist at SAP. We're super excited to have Glen with us for a thought leadership presentation titled, Are You Ready for Business AI? Welcome, Glen. Over to you.
Hey, thanks very much, Nick. I really appreciate the warm introduction and the hospitality today. And I certainly wish everyone watching good luck with the contest, good luck winning the prizes, and anything that SAP can do to contribute to that. If you come and visit our site, then we're happy to contribute to that as well. If you aren't familiar with SAP, we are the world's largest provider of enterprise application software, and we have a really unique perspective on the world of business AI, as we've made massive investments in this area, committing in excess of 10,000 developers to it, which is one of the advantages of being the world's largest provider, that you can really lean into it. And we have an interesting question to ask that has arisen out of all of our conversations with customers in North America and around the world, which is, yes, certainly there's all this discussion of the technology, discussion of the platforms. You have a lot of choices to make. You have a lot of use cases to explore. But we'd like to ask you a very basic question. Are you ready for this? Are you ready for business AI? And so let's jump in. Let's start exploring that particular question. I would argue that there's actually four things that you need to actually pull off AI in a business setting. One is the underlying compute power. Obviously, AI is one of the thirstiest, hungriest applications we've ever seen in the world of enterprise software. It is an extremely compute-intensive type program in order to actually create the outcomes that we're looking for. But we also need obviously the tools themselves, which we've seen over the last year and a half, 2 years. They've matured extremely rapidly. But those tools, as I said, are extremely hungry, not just for computing power, but also for the data necessary to train the tools, to build them out, to help them construct a useful outcome. And lastly, all of this stuff actually can't operate in a vacuum. It has to operate in a business process or a context, if you want to use the popular term. So if those are the different dimensions or axes of readiness, why don't we examine each of them in turn here over the course of the next few minutes? So let's start with, we'll ask the question as we would to our AI assistant, is the AI itself ready? So let's focus on the AI and the computing power underneath it. And if you've been paying attention over the last 10 years, we would not have been able to make the AI that you see today, even 10 years ago, because of the emergence of really ubiquitous hardware power. It is just everywhere. And I am sure you will encounter charts like this during the course of these sessions today with Argyle and in other places as well. But look at what's been going on. Why is it so easy these days to produce AI? The algorithms themselves have been around for years, for decades even. Well, it's because of this, because the availability of computing power is unprecedented. It is literally everywhere. And what used to be a couple dollars per billion floating point operation, if I can use a somewhat dated term, is now down to effectively zero. It's down by a factor of over 100 in just 10 years. It's ridiculous how inexpensive compute power is. And that in turn leads to, as I said earlier, ubiquity. If you talk about the notion of a hyperscale data center, and that is a data center with at least 5,000 servers, at least 10,000 square feet. You go back 10 years ago, there were about 100 of those. Now there are very nearly 1,000. In fact, there's one in China which is almost 50,000 servers in one single data center. So the ubiquity of this computing power, it's everywhere. So we suddenly have a lot more opportunity to develop really compute-intensive applications that are based on AI algorithms. If we look at the AI itself, that has exploded. And again, I can point to all kinds of different metrics for this. The one I always encourage people to look at is just to follow the money. If you look at the amount of money that's been thrown at AI, there's a nice little spike there a year or so ago, which would represent Microsoft throwing their head in the ring. But it's tens of billions of dollars of investment being put into this space at levels that we have not seen in the enterprise application space really ever. So you look at there's 9 companies that have received in excess of $500 million of venture capital investment. That's just in the last 18 months, including our friends at OpenAI who've pulled down in excess of $11 billion of investment. That's an awful lot of R&D. That's an awful lot of smart people. That's an awful lot of compute power. That's an awful lot of NVIDIA boards. That's an awful lot of effort being put in the AI space. So let's examine that a little further. Why are they chasing all this? Well, it's because of the adoption. AI has been adopted at levels we've never seen before. Again, if you look at the days to acquire 100 million users, what took Netflix, or whatever that was, I think 3.5 years, ChatGPT did it in November 2023. It did it in 5 days. That's why everyone is racing towards this space. It is very much a gold rush right now. And you're seeing lots and lots of really innovative use cases emerging as a result, as everybody tries to be the dominant player to emerge from the battles that are taking place, the tens of billions of dollars worth of battles that are taking place in this AI space. As I mentioned earlier, these tools are extremely hungry. So if you look at the large language models, the chat GPTs and so forth, and you look at the sheer number of tokens that they consume, it's a massive number. What you're seeing there on the vertical axis here is a logarithmic scale. So 10 to the 11th, I think that's in the tens of billions. And as we move up, you see just how many tokens these large language models are consuming in order to get as smart as they are appearing to be. And we can see that we are into the trillions of tokens now when you look up into a DBRX or Llama 3, and even some additional models that have emerged in the last few months. And you project that out, there's really no end in sight, except for one possible governing factor, which is the amount of available data that's out there. If you look at the amount of human-generated, publicly available text in the world, it appears that we're heading for a collision here. We're going to have one line become an asymptote to the other. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we may one day run out of oil, we may run out of fresh water, but the projection here says that within 5 years, we're going to run out of data to feed into these large language models. Again, that's publicly available data. Privately held data is another matter. And that's all of you folks. And every time I talk to customers, talk to audiences like this, I always encourage people, read your license agreements very carefully. Because once the tech titans run out of the publicly available data, they will be looking to find ways to use that privately generated data. And that is your data. And I encourage everybody just to make sure that you keep that where you can see it. Okay, so we're looking at everything that's going on from a compute power and a tool point of view. There's other simple tests we can do. I asked Microsoft Copilot, just draw me a picture of that data center with 50,000 servers in it, and it came back with this in the space of 10 seconds. Then I asked it, well, what does it look like when I actually train one of these AI systems, when I load tokens into it? And it came back with this picture. Again, no training on my part. I didn't have to learn how to do this. I just typed in my question into a chat box, and back came this image. And lastly, I said, please draw me a picture of all the venture capitalists who are currently working on AI deals. And while you're at it, do it in the style of Vincent van Gogh. And 10 seconds later, this image came back. So if you look at all of these factors, combine them all together, and we ask ourselves, is the AI ready? Yes, the AI is ready. The technology, the algorithms, the availability of computing power, yes, the AI is ready. So the next thing we might ask ourselves, again, from a business point of view, are we ready for business AI, is the ERP system, the enterprise resource planning system, is that thing ready? That's obviously where a lot of these business AI systems are going to live. Is that ready? So SAP is the largest provider of ERP systems in the world. We have a unique perspective on this. And I'm going to draw a slide up here. I'm not going to ask you to read it. I don't encourage you to even try, but I'm just going to sketch a little ERP system for you very quickly. So we have sales, we do planning, procurement, we receive the materials in, put them into manufacturing, and then actually ship them out to customers. And if you break down those processes into details, the details might look something like this. This is obviously an extremely incomplete diagram. ERP systems are vastly more complex than this, but it serves to illustrate our point. And what is our point? Is companies have been injecting AI capabilities into their ERP system now for years, literally 4 years. So think of just the number of boxes that we have on the screen here at the moment. And if you look at what SAP has been doing, we've been injecting AI in different forms for quite some time. So here, for example, would be all of our traditional kind of machine learning based, so-called classic or traditional AI. We have another form of AI called situation handling, which is essentially like a smart version of Slack that just sits there, watches your ERP system, and then messages you on a chat kind of platform to say, hey, have you thought about doing this particular process? We have intelligent robotic process automation that goes on. And lastly, we have something called Joule, which is our artificial intelligence fueled co-pilot assistant. It's similar to a Microsoft Copilot or an Amazon Alexa or an Apple Siri or Google Hey Google, but it's living inside the ERP, and you can ask it ERP-related questions, such as what you see on the yellow boxes here. So the point of this, again, is not to read this. If you sort of squint at this from across the room, you will realize that there are actually more AI boxes on the screen than there are ERP boxes. And that's what we see happening over the next few years, is that AI will essentially completely infiltrate and penetrate your ERP systems, and it could actually become your new default user experience. Never mind clicking and tapping and using your mouse and so on. You might just talk to it and have it talk back. That is certainly within the realm of possibility with the availability of the hardware, the compute power, the AI algorithms, and so on, especially the large language models. So it is hitting your ERP systems all over the place. Again, what has SAP done in the last 10 years? We've done all kinds of work to simplify our systems in many different dimensions. We've restructured our products to make them AI friendly, to make them much easier for the AI to work with. You'll hear things like knowledge graph coming from SAP, where we are essentially training an AI on what a business is and does using non-conventional data models. And that, again, makes it a lot easier to have a natural language conversation with the ERP and produce the outcomes that we're looking for, which, as you begin to play with these things, they're approaching the level of magic. They are a lot of fun for our users to experience. Lots of other technology that we've put into the platforms as well. We have AI-assisted ERP systems, certainly, but also AI-assisted implementation tools, AI-assisted development tools. So everybody who's participating in business enterprise application software is finding their lives accelerated and improved, and allowing people to produce much more content than they ever could before with the same level of effort. All of this, of course, only makes sense when we deliver it in the cloud, and SAP is the world leader in cloud ERP systems, which, again, we're happy to share with our customers and help them on their journey into this new world. All right, so we can ask ourselves the question, is the ERP system ready? And I think the answer to that is, like the AI, it's a resounding yes. We're absolutely ready to do this. We've spent a tremendous amount of time and effort developing the underlying architecture, so we could be ready for this day to be able to move forward in a world of not just traditional AI, not just generative AI, but you'll hear a lot going into 2025 and beyond about agentic AI, where you actually set a series of goals for the AI and allow it to accomplish it for you on your behalf. So again, keep watching this space. That will be a very exciting area in the world of business software going forward. All right. So if you look at our picture here, actually things look pretty good. Looks like the compute power is good, the AI is good, tons of data, all of that private data that we're going to use to train the AI actually lives, guess where, in the ERP system. That looks good. The business processes have never been clearer. They're very well documented, and that's a product of SAP having done this for 50 years. It looks like everything is good. But I would encourage you to look just beyond the technology. And that's the biggest question when it comes to um, the, uh, the overall question we're trying to answer today about are you ready for business AI? The overall readiness doesn't take place in any of these boxes, believe it or not. It actually takes place here within the organization where all of this business software lives. So when we ask ourselves, are we ready for business AI? Setting aside all the great technology that so many people have labored on for so long, let's look at let's look at the question from a slightly different way. So is the organization ready? Let's just get that out of the way. No, they're not. No, they're not. I probably should have led with this. So here we are a few minutes into the presentation, but no, the organizations aren't ready. Well, wait a minute. Here's the guy from SAP. He's supposed to be representing business AI. He's been really optimistic about everything else. What's the root of this statement? Well, it has to do again with actual conversations with actual customers and what their experiences have been like. The organization is certainly ready in terms of being willing to experiment, being willing to try new things, being willing to innovate. But sometimes the enterprise application architecture gets in the way a little bit. What do I mean by that? Well, it's actually something we've seen all over the place. Here's a statistic from McKinsey that says what we're trying to do is feed that incredibly hungry beast, that AI tool, with all the data necessary to train it in order to have produce a good outcome for us. And if you look at a survey that they did actually just a little bit earlier this year of organizations where a significant portion of their revenue actually derived from AI related software, 70% of those extremely high performing, really ahead of the curve organizations are struggling with this. Wrangling the data, governing the data, integrating it into an AI model at a significant enough scale to train the model to be effective enough to produce a great outcome. So this is hard, is what I'm saying. All the tools, all the theory is very sound, we're ready, but the actual execution of this in an organization, this is hard. And that's something that really I commend your attention to. It is worthy of your focus. The tools will take care of themselves, but really you want to look at your organization and see how ready you actually are. Now, where does this come from? A lot of it comes from just the way that we've structured organizations over the years. So, and we see this all the time, where you have a nice ERP system running at headquarters, but because you have made perhaps an acquisition, or maybe there's been some autonomy where you granted to a subsidiary where they've just gone out and got their own ERP. We see these heterogeneous landscapes all over the place. And can you imagine how difficult it would be to try to put an AI system into this environment, into this space here? That's challenging. That's the hard part, where the rubber really does meet the road. So what we try to do is look at this, and maybe we need to ask a different question. Is the organization ready? Maybe we should ask ourselves, well, wait a second. Organizationally, what impact would an AI have on the way that we run right now? So let's again take a look at that process. And again, in real life, where an organization might have more than one ERP running. Let's just imagine there's two very similar processes. This is the most garden variety order to cash process of all time, but it's running in two different ERP systems. So let's imagine for a moment that we're going to introduce AI into this space, as many of our customers absolutely are right now and have been now for years. Let's say we wanted to put in an AI agent to do cash application. Very tedious process in the world of accounting. If you know someone who actually does this still manually, please go give them a hug, because it's a difficult task. You take a invoice that's been has been sent to a customer. They send you a payment, and you have to figure out, okay, which payment applies to which invoice, so I can tick it off and indicate that it's been paid. Tedious beyond belief, but backed up by tons and tons of data which reside within that particular business context. So we can take our compute power and our AI tool and train that agent to do cash application at or better than human levels. So what happens when you do this? Well, again, remember, it is a hungry, hungry environment. So think of it as a big vortex. It's going to be sucking in all this data, as much as it can possibly eat. I tell people to think of it like a hungry teenager. It wants one cheeseburger after another. So what happens is you look at this space and say, boy, it would sure be great if I could really sort of aggregate all of my payment information so that the cash application tool would work better. Because the more I train it, the more effective it is, the smarter it gets. So what you can see happening sometimes is there's a real interest in consolidating the payment process. And basically for all the different businesses, let's just have one big AI that runs everything. And we sometimes call this, the gravity of business AI, the gravitational effect of it. It's so powerful, in fact, it might even sometimes pull adjacent processes into a single AI. So now you have all the invoicing, the payment, and the collections all in one system, and you're sort of moving in and out of ERP systems. This, again, is extremely challenging. Our enterprise architectures aren't ready for this. Our enterprise architects aren't ready for this. So, but this is absolutely what AI demands in terms of feeding it as much data as we possibly can to make it as effective as we can. So that is a very challenging environment. So again, with that in mind, how should we actually think about deploying our AI systems? If we could wipe the slate clean and sort of go forward on the best possible approach, what are some of our choices? Well, the first choice would be, well, I'll just take an AI and I'll put it into every one of those different systems. So I don't mind having 3 ERP systems. Maybe I don't mind having 3 AI systems. Well, that, unfortunately, is what the industry has come to call technical debt, because you're essentially investing over and over again to the same thing to produce the same outcome. Multiple times you're going to set up an ERP system, multiple times you're going to set up an AI system. And the AIs, in fact, are diminished a little bit because, remember, they're very hungry. You're not feeding them everything that you have. You're only feeding them what's available locally in that local ERP system. So there are some drawbacks to that approach. We've seen people do it at an experimental basis, and they miss out the opportunity to aggregate things. We see people go the other way, where they sort of over aggregate and they pull everything out of all of the ERP systems and reproduce it in some outboard AI system, typically on a hyperscaler, because that's the only place it's really cost effective. And now you've got some non-native non-native AI that doesn't necessarily speak to the ERP, and you're transporting essentially all of the data necessary, the millions and millions of records necessary from multiple different ERP systems into that outboard data lake or what have you, where you're now paying for network charges, for example, and you're introducing latency into the process. If you don't think latency is a real issue in AI, then ask your Alexa or your Google a question and see what happens if you have to wait more than 10 seconds. Your blood pressure will go up, you'll start to rage, and you might even say some bad words. So this architecture, again, is tempting, but again, has a couple of other drawbacks. Fortunately, we think there's actually a simple solution to that. And we think it looks something like this. We set up what we call, and what we're all familiar with, a shared service. We consolidate the process into a headquarters ERP, as an example. We localize the compute power and aggregate all the data there. We put the AI tool there. And now the AI can be trained on everything that's available. You get great response time. There's no additional weird network charges you have to pay for. And the tools exist. The ERP vendor will be able to provide you with the tools and also the integration technology to make all of these ERPs talk to each other. So we think that's a very appealing architecture, and we can ask people to consider that as they're looking at how to deploy ERP in a business setting. So again, just to wrap this conversation up, if we look at how we might approach this, we think that the more the organization shares processes, the more naturally the data aggregates. The more that we aggregate the data, the better the AI will perform. And obviously, the better the AI performs, the better the organization performs. If we are heading into an era of giant robot wars, you definitely want to have the biggest giant robot. And we encourage people to think about ways of aggregating their data and their processes in order to put the best possible product out there for their users and certainly for their customers as well. So if we return to our question, is the organization ready? No. Well, it's no, but help is at hand. And SAP, again, as the world's largest provider of enterprise application software, we stand ready to assist. We actually have a workshop that we'd be very happy to walk you through. Certainly, you can reach out and contact us about this, which essentially allows you to look at your landscape and say, what's the best possible place to put this AI? And let's see if we can produce both a financial model as well as an enterprise architecture that would help us to achieve that. So that is in 25 minutes or so the presentation that I wanted to deliver to you today. It is an extremely interesting time to be in business as AI begins to emerge. The technical challenges, while certainly many remain, have largely been solved in terms of creating use cases and productive implementations of AI. The big challenge now is how to organizationally do this, um, both from a human and resources point of view, but also an enterprise architecture point of view. So we, as SAP, are standby, ready to help, and that's where I'll leave you today with the last question, which is how can we help you? So I'll stop there, and Nick, I'll ask if there were any questions that appeared in the chat boxes
Great.
as I was talking for the last 25 minutes or so.
Yeah, for sure. We have a few questions. Here's one. What role does organizational culture play in adopting AI? And how can companies overcome resistance to change in AI driven transformations?
Those are fantastic questions. So thank you very much for that. I will say that organizations that are already disposed towards innovation tend to actually not just experiment with or adopt, but even embrace AI. It's not a technology to be afraid of. Again, anybody who's ever asked a question of a voice assistant and gotten back a ridiculous answer, you realize that this thing is not Skynet. It's not coming to kill us all. So organizations with a disposition towards innovation, or sections of an organization with a disposition towards innovation, those people have an advantage. When it comes to how to overcome any resistance that you might see or how to promote AI within the business, there's no substitute for trying it. And in fact, SAP offers a free session. We call it the Value Exploration Workshop. And we can make the links for that available to really anybody who wants to try it out, where you can actually come in and play with an ERP system over about a 3 hour period. I really do mean play. We actually structure it in the form of a game, and you can play with and even against an AI to see who runs the best business. So you play with it, you begin to check the AI recommendations. You're playing the game, and the AI says, "Hey, I think you should raise the price on this product. I think the demand would support that." And you get to choose how you interact with the AI. Familiarity with it really breeds a lot more comfort with the technology when you see just how it works and how simple it is, and how easy it is to use. It's not like you need training on this stuff. You know how to speak naturally. So the AI is reaching out to you. So I encourage people to get their hands on it, play with it, try different use cases, fail fast if necessary. But familiarity, yeah, will definitely breed comfort in that area.
Great. And here's another one from the audience. What are the signs that a business is leveraging AI effectively to gain a competitive advantage in their industry?
Generally speaking, that is a tricky question. There's two answers to that question. One is there's a splashy outcome where someone has created an application where it just makes you sit back and go, that's impressive. That's a technological marvel. That's an achievement. And you see some of the Copilot I showed a little earlier, where I can just type in a phrase and I'll have it generate an image. It's very splashy. It's very impactful, and that's one category of signs of success. The second one is a lot less splashy, a lot less visual, a lot less sexy, but no less important. And that's where you start to see AI doing what AI does best. The very best AI agents do one very small, narrow task, and they do it very, very well. And it might be, help me write this job description for this particular HR function. It doesn't do anything else. It doesn't go off and figure out how to optimize your production or anything like that. It does one particular task very, very well. And you might say, well, all I've really done is speed up the process of creating job descriptions. Yes, but as you're doing that agent and then another one and another one, the aggregation of all of these little narrow wins, you're hitting singles all day long. If I can use a baseball analogy, but those things turn into runs. And the more of these agents that you deploy and the more you train them, the better they get. That's where you start to see suddenly this remarkable acceleration where your people are wildly more productive than they have been in the past. And it's an incremental thing over time. You're hitting singles instead of home runs. Both are really valid ways of making a good outcome and putting runs on the board. But yeah, you're going to see lots and lots of examples of little narrow AI that does one thing. It supports the user in one field. How do I set up this particular I don't know, for example, category? I'm setting up a new material in my ERP system. What purchasing category should I put it in? Instead of the person having to figure it out, the AI can make a suggestion. It's one field on one screen in one step of one process. But boy, those things can add up in a hurry.
Great. And thank you so much for such an incredible thought leadership. And I want to thank everyone else for joining us today. This session, along with all of today's content, will be available on demand following the event. As a reminder, please be sure to check out the prizes and raffle rules section to see how you can earn points for the chance to win one of several prizes. Our next session will begin at 1:15 p.m. Eastern Time, which will be a thought leadership titled Unlock the AI Advantage, Navigating AI Implementation. Please click the join button that will appear on your screen to be redirected to the next session, and we look forward to seeing you there.